Hello, hello, my wanderers of the night. Prepare your salt and say your prayers, as we're about to meet the top 10 scary demons from ancient history we pray aren't real. For example, our first demon is also classified as a god, Wero. According to Maori mythology, Wero was the broski to the light god Tane, and their parents were Papa, aka the Earth, and Rangi, aka the Sky. Like having 3 kids and a dog in a 2-bedroom apartment, the brothers and their siblings are all unhappy that mom and dad did not do enough pre-planning, and there's not enough room for all the kids. So, Tane wishes to separate their parents by forcing Rangi upward. Parents divorcing is hard enough, but when your brother's the one suggesting it? Nah, Wero was pissed, and he was the only one in the family that didn't agree to the plan, insisting they all remain in darkness together. But he's hardcore ignored by mass majority vote, and is angered by his brother Tane's actions and suggestion that even got them there to begin with. Wero becomes the embodiment of darkness and evil. He went on to rule the Underworld and was responsible for all the crap that humans did. His demonic guidance was ceaseless and didn't end with just the living, as when a person died it was believed that upon their descent to the Underworld they were eaten by Wero. Each bit of flesh made him stronger, so that eventually he would be powerful enough to break free of the Netherworld, breach the surface, and devour everything. Anyways, in the meantime, while we wait for the Wero apocalypse, to prevent being consumed by him, you can be cremated, as gods can't gain strength from ashes. This Filipino beast will live in your head rent-free, Mananaganagal, who I will be calling Mana because that's a tongue twister for me. According to the Aswang Project, creatures similar to Mana existed throughout Southeast Asia, like the Pentagon in Malaysia we'll learn about later, or the Pazuzu in Thailand. Multiple mythologies share common beings with this Filipino demon. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? And while it may be a beautiful woman during the day, at night Mana separates from the lower half of its body, and their fangs and wings give it a vampire-like appearance as she flies in search of victims with her gnarled hair and intestines trailing below her. She preys on the unsuspecting while they're asleep, with pregnant women being her ideal prey. It'll use its elongated tongue to suck out the woman's blood, organs, or even fetus, only hunting men out of lustuous desires and luring them to a private place to eat them alive, feasting on all of their organs. Now, you can't just beat this chick with a broom to get her to go away, but there are a couple tricks. If sunlight hits her separated torso, she's gonna die. Or if you find her lower half while she's off hunting the night and pack the gut of it with salt and crushed garlic, she can't reattach come morning and will die. To keep the Mana away from your home, you can leave pots of uncooked rice, ash, or salt around the vicinity. If they spot any of those items on your roof, they may not decide to enter because they assume if you're eating that, you probably taste like crap. You are what you eat. I'm just kidding. One of the many scorned ladies on this list is Leviathan. The goddess of death and disease was the blind daughter of Tioni, the god of death, and his underworld queen, Tionetar. She is the most wretched daughter of with the blackest of heart, an evil genius of La Pala bent on unleashing the most wicked and terrible illnesses upon the mortal lands. The Kavalala, a 19th century work of poetry recognized as the national epic of Finland, references her. The blind daughter of Tion, old and wicked witch, Leviathan, worst of all deathland women, ugliest of Mana children, source of all the host evils and the ills and plagues of the Northland, blah 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 blah. Imagine getting crapped on by a whole country in a slam poem. As a virginal mother of disease, Leviathan's form appears to be the exact opposite of the virginal mothers of other mythologies. Her purity seemingly meant more to highlight her repellingness to mankind. Anyways, she was believed to have become pregnant by the east wind and consequently birthed 9 sons, and they were all the vilest of diseases: consumption, colic, gout, rickets, ulcer, scab, cancer, and plague. The final son is considered the most dreadful, which is why his name does not appear in any text. Apparently, he was banished by his most wretched mother herself to become the scourge of humankind. Arachnophobia beware, Jogamono is here. Japan is one of those countries that has a gigantic backlog of lore, legends, and myths due to its extensive histories spanning back as far as 35,000 BC. Now, Jurgamo is no exception. The stories of her have been spun like webs for centuries past, going back to the Edo period of Japan. The monster is said to have the upper half of a beautiful, seductive woman with porcelain white skin and eyes and hair as dark as night. Meanwhile, from the waist down, homegirl is packing giant spider legs, and lots of them. The creature would lure thirsty-ass men into desolate shacks where once the door is closed, his fate is met, and Juro began spinning them in its web before eating them slowly alive, just like the real spiders. The legend also claims that Juro are born when a spider reaches 400 years old, as it acquires transformative abilities through magic, which has me ready to Google how to tell spiders' ages anytime I see one now. Even more terrifying are the stories of Juro appearing as a normal person to a passerby, presenting strangers with what seems like a baby in a blanket, and when the blanket's open, it's a nest full of spiders' eggs that explode and engulf the subject alive. May you listen to your mother should La Llorona take you to her watery death. steps. Though there are many variations in La Llorona's start, it remains that she was a beautiful woman named Maria, whose husband began courting or messing around with someone else. She's blinded by her rage, her despair, and commits an unspeakably heinous act at the river, one where she comes to too late. Realizing what she'd done in her grief, Maria takes her own life by drowning as well. Her soul is unable to go to the afterlife until she finds the souls of her children. She's cursed to go after the children of the living, hoping one day to find the correct souls and be free. Now she wanders along riverside, screaming, crying, and calling out them for some love, for someone. But don't be mistaken with pity. This woman is cursed by her horrible deed, and her ill intent remains alive even if she does not. She steals children to add to her watery arsenal, a void she cannot fill, one caused by her own selfish decision, now leaving them to be lost forever. Similar to our second demon, Mana, it makes you wonder how so many far apart places had the same experience, whether as La Llorona in Mexico, or in Nicaragua as La Novia de Tola, or Venezuela as La Sayona. There's many stories of the weeping woman who's scorned by her lover so she may dispose of her own children and self, then be cursed to haunt the lands and steal life from the living. This ain't a pony ride you want to take. The Kelpie. The last time I wrote about a Kelpie before this script was actually a middle school essay. I was a mythology obsessed kid who got to choose their own topic, so it's kind of crazy to see how this came back around for me after a decade. The Kelpie is a shape-changing aquatic spirit of Scottish legend. Its name may derive from the Scottish Gaelic word meaning heifer or colt, as Kelpies are said to haunt rivers and streams, usually in the shape of a horse. But this ain't no show pony. It's black as night, with rows of fangs and opalescent pupilless eyes. Its feet are said to be webbed, and it's said that its tail entering the water is to resemble the sound of thunder. And if you're passing by a river and hear an unearthly wail or howling, take care. It could be a Kelpie warning of an approaching storm. It's a particularly attractive creature to children. Luring them onto its back where its sticky magic hides will glue them down so they can't dismount. Then the Kelpie will trot itself happily back into the water and have a feast below. But there is some good news. A Kelpie has a weak spot, and it's its bridle. Anyone who can get a hold of a Kelpie's bridle will have command over it and any other Kelpie. A captive Kelpie is said to have the strength of at least 10 horses. So, see what you guys can manage. This creature is the reason Zulus were bunk bedding it. It's the Tocoloche. Sometimes they're described as small humanoid creatures like gremlins or gnomes, and other times they're described as more bulbous and fleshy with a piggish or apish quality. These South African demons are always malevolent, but what on this list isn't, you know? They are said to crawl into sleeping people's rooms and cause all kinds of havoc, from simply scaring them all the way to choking them with their long bony fingers. Bony fingers that they love to scratch and poke with, leaving marks all over your body. One way to keep the Tocoloche at bay is to put bricks underneath the legs of your bed. This will put you out of reach of the short creatures and hopefully out of harm's way. If it continues to torment, a Zulu Sagmona is called, and they exorcise the area and the home. There might actually be a very real terrifying reason for the creation of this creature. Let's back up the sleeping arrangements quickly. As mentioned, raised beds are an important way to combat them. Traditionally, many South Africans slept on grass mats on the ground around the fire on winter night. However, healthy people would inexplicably be found dead come morning. Why? Well, the Tocoloche, of course. But there's a theory that sleeping close to the fire in their homes may have depleted the oxygen levels and filled their home with carbon dioxide. As it is heavier than pure air, it would sink to the bottom where people slept. Thus, if you put things under your bed and rise it, there's a better chance of waking up alive in the morning. Raise your bed, now you're not dead. The Pentagon. These bad boys are what I was referring to in our second point, similar to manas. They are infamous mythological creatures known by different names throughout Southeast Asia. In Malaysian myth, the Pentagon was once a mortal woman who performed witchcraft with a witch by agreeing to become vegetarian for 40 days in exchange for youthful beauty. Ultimately, she passed a McDonald's at 2 a.m. after a night of tequila and smelt the chicken nuggets and folded, breaks her vegetarian pack, eats some meat for some reason, and gets instant karma. Cursed to be a flesh-eating Pentagon. During the day, she would resemble an ordinary woman, but at night her head would detach from body, floating around and trailing her entrails and spine under it. This disembodied head would fly around like a demented helium balloon on the run, searching for sustenance in the form, once again, of pregnant women and infants, draining them of their blood. And any of those fed on by this vampiric creature usually ended up contracting diseases, if not dying. Returning to her abode before dawn, the Pentagon would soak her dangly organs and veins and spines and stuff in vinegar, shrink them back to size, and fit them back in her body. A Pentagon, therefore, could be recognized during the day by the telltale smell of strong vinegar. It's one demon that encompasses a lot of demons, the Jumpy. Jumpy is a name given to the most nefarious creatures in Caribbean mythology, and there are many different types of Jumpy, each a reflection of the Caribbean's diverse makeup of African, Amerindian, East Indian, Dutch, and English people and the lore that they carried with them there. The creatures themselves cast dark, shadowy figures and are much more sinister than the average ghost. For example, there's the Bakujam. Resembling a leprechaun, it rewards its owner with wealth or wishes at the price of constant supply of milk and bananas. Bakus are mischievous as well as intelligent and devious, behaving like a poltergeist by moving items and pelting rocks at home. A moon gazer Jumpy only comes out at full moon and is an unusually tall, muscular man always standing on the road or the edges of the cliff under a full moon, foot on either side and hands on the hip. Anyone who tries to pass will be crushed to death as he quickly closes his legs. The Churil Jumpy is an East Indian origin and the evil spirit of a woman who died in childbirth. Tormented by separation from her child, she haunts and terrorizes pregnant women and newborn babies. A Churil resembles a human woman, but their feet are turned backwards and their features are sometimes upside down. To protect yourself from Jumpies, there's a few general tricks. Leave a heap of rice outside your door. It forces them to count every grain before the sunrise. They can't cross water, so if you're being chased, go for a dive. If you walk backwards into your house at night, it can stop them from entering too. And last but not least, please don't curse me for it, is Lamashtu. Demons and monsters are arguably synonymous nowadays, but in Mesopotamia it was anything but, as demons are entities separate in nature from the gods and humans, taking either non-human forms or being shapeless, materialized by the wind. Thus, demon versus daemon, two different things. According to folklore, Lamashtu is the daughter of Anu, the Sumerian lord of the sky. She had feet like that of an eagle and very long fingernails and a bunch of body hair. She had the head of a lion and the ears and teeth of a donkey. And she was a big ol' B-word for no reason to, just inherent evil and rage. She attacked pregnant women, mothers, and babies. She would touch a pregnant woman's stomach 7 times and the pregnancy would wither. She would kidnap newborns while they were breastfeeding and have them for her own. And her favorite meal aside from bones was human flesh topped off with boiling blood. Fittingly, her name is Akkadian for she who erases. However, as vile as eating children is, Lamashtu enacted various other evil deeds. Really covered all the bases. She disturbed the sleep, brought nightmares, killed nature, polluted rivers. When she wasn't wrecking the environment, she messed up bodies. She bound the muscles of men, caused pregnant women to have issues with their pregnancy, and brought disease and sickness. Amulets like the one pictured depicted the lion head bird-clawed Lamashtu and were worn by expectant mothers to defend themselves against her. Despite her dark supremacy, Lamashtu had a weakness. The plague bringer, Pazuzu. I'm not gonna say that word. The weakness, the plague bringer, P.A., you guys can figure out the rest. You're not supposed to say this name, so I have no intention to do so. Sure, he was evil too, bringing famine and drought, and he was summoned by women to protect them from the true evil, which was Lamashtu. It's unknown whether he did this because he felt sympathy for the expecting mothers, or simply hated the demoness no matter how much she loved him. And meanwhile, she stays in love, he stays hating, and they stay toxic. Alright, that is all for today. Thank you so much for watching, and always remember, what may be fiction to you could be realities to others, so take these stories with a grain of salt. Pun intended. Like and subscribe. Peace out.